Hello everyone, Silent here, and welcome back to another episode of Bugrock of the Week. Today I'll be showing you a truly fascinating and weird bug in the Bedrock edition of Minecraft. This bug essentially disconnects you from where your player is, allowing you to roam anywhere in the world, free from taking any sort of damage, and preventing you from interacting with any blocks, mobs, or anything like that. Basically, it is Spectator mode on Bedrock edition, but like a cheaper version of it. This also allows you to become a chunk loader as well, because where I'm at is not actually where I'm at. The game thinks that I am somewhere completely different in the world, which allows you to do many fascinating things with this Bedrock Edition bug. There is a lot of different possibilities when it comes to the powers of this little glitch. So basically what's happening here is the game thinks that you are someplace that you are not, and basically your camera and your player is allowed to go anywhere in your world disconnected from where you were actually standing. So technically the game thinks that I am like right there, for example. If I go ahead and drop an item out of my inventory, you'll see that it appears over there. And this happens no matter where I'm at. As you can see, I can throw any of these items and they're all going to end up right over there next to that bed. So essentially the game thinks that my player is right there. We can demonstrate this really well by placing down a command block. This one is just going to say hi on repeat. That way we can tell when this area becomes unloaded. There is no ticking areas in this world. This is a brand new world created just a couple of minutes ago, and I am using it on simulation distance of 4. We can go as far away as we possibly can to the edge of the render distance, and as you can see, that command block is still saying hi, meaning that that area of the world where I just placed down the armor stand is still technically loaded. You can see that we can't render any further chunks either, meaning that the player is still technically over there, but we are allowed to explore off into the distance. Conveniently, we also get a little bit of an X-ray from this as well, allowing you to find spawners or whatever else you are looking for. However, as you can tell, we cannot break any blocks or interact with anything in the world because we can't physically be here to place these blocks. The game knows that we are all the way over there at that village, so it's not going to allow us to interact with anything that we shouldn't physically be able to interact with. And again, keep in mind, this bug makes you completely immortal as well, so we can fall from the sky and we won't take a single bit of damage or anything like that. We can't even interact with water or drown because we're not actually in water. We're back at that little village, which is very interesting. Now, the only way to undo this bug is to actually unlog from the game, which will teleport you back to where you are actually physically standing. So if we just go ahead and pop down this hole real quick into the void, you will see that we are not going to take a single bit of damage because we're not in the void. We are in the village. Let's go ahead and relog the game real quick and we will pop back directly to where we should be standing, which is in the village. And as you can see, we're now back safe and sound in the village. All the items that we dropped are now right here, and that is really all there is to it. It is a super fascinating bug. However, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing this in your worlds because, you know, it is kind of like a major break-in of the game. Let's do a couple more demonstrations, shall we? So the game still thinks that I'm about right there, or maybe I'm standing like, you know, a little bit closer to right here, for example. So I can go ahead and break and place blocks all up in this area because I am technically within this area. I should be able to reach blocks within this area, so the game has no issue with me placing or breaking blocks in this area. However, as you can see, it's going to place blocks in the orientation that the game thinks I'm facing. So the game thinks that I am facing that way, obviously, because that's where the items come from, and that is where the bed orientation is as well. Now, I can actually place things quite far away from where the game thinks I am. I can go all the way to about over here, and that is quite the range, actually. That surprised me. And you can see that we can go quite far to the left and to the back side and to the right side as well. So definitely further than the standard reach of a player. So you can interact with many different blocks around where the game actually thinks you are, which has its own certain use cases. However, anything outside of that range, which is probably about maybe 12 or so blocks, you can't really interact with anything at all. As you can see, I can't break or place blocks or do anything of that sort sort, I can't even go through portals because the game knows that I am not actually over here. And you can see that we're going to get the nausea effect from going to the Nether portal, but we can't actually go into the Nether, of course. This has a pretty interesting impact on usables and consumables. So for example, we can still fly with our elytra, of course, but we can't use any fireworks. However, if we try and use a fishing rod, and this is quite hilarious, you'll see that the actual bobber is all the way over there. So the line just extends to wherever we're at, which is honestly pretty hilarious. Because that bobber is technically, you know, within range of the player, the fishing rod is not going to break. It's so interesting. It's such a fascinating thing. Bugs are great. You guys like bugs? I like bugs a lot. Another way to instantly get back home when you are out traveling using this bug is to just throw an ender pearl, and then you'll teleport basically back to where the game thinks you are. As you can see, if we throw another item, we are going to be basically standing right about here, more or less. Yeah, so the game thinks that we're right here. Needless to say, this has pretty big impacts for exploring your world. As you can tell, you can just walk straight into the unloaded chunks. Of course, you have no idea what's in these chunks, so you gotta be very careful when exploring. But then you can look back into the loaded chunks, and as you can see, we got 2 fossils and this 1 ravine right here, and we found a spawner earlier in the video as well. And now, you can actually still use commands in these areas, but you have to target these specific blocks. You can't really use the tildes to target where you are at. So we're going to fill this with air, go ahead and go down here and explore this little ravine. As you can see, we got a fossil there and another fossil right here in the dead center of this ravine. It's kind of cool. I haven't seen that before. So yeah, you can explore all kinds of areas of your world without worrying about dying or anything like that. It's basically a perfect little spectator mode, except you can't really fly into blocks or break blocks, so you have to rely on the unloaded edges of your world to see what's actually happening and where. An interesting fact of using commands while in this kind of like pseudo spectator mode, if you use the tilde commands to target where you are currently standing, then that is simply going to, you know, target where the game thinks you are. So as you can see, we can't place a diamond block right here because that diamond block is now all the way back there at spawn. However, if you try to teleport yourself, say to this location right here, the game will actually start loading and rendering more chunks, as you can see here, and it's going to start unrendering chunks over there. However, we are not actually over here still. We are still technically back at the village, so you can load more areas of your world while in this pseudo spectator mode, and you can explore all kinds of areas. Now, as you can see, you're not actually generating any areas of the world. Due to how Bedrock Edition works, you can view areas of the world without ever actually generating the terrain, because, you know, that's how you are allowed to have a simulation distance of 4, but a render distance of like 80 chunks, for example. So we're technically over here in this village, but as you can see, there are no villagers, which is a telltale sign of this village not actually being generated yet. I don't know why, but I thought it would be interesting to go to the far lands while in this mode, and it turns out that it's actually fairly easy to travel when out here in the far lands. Of course, we still can't use any of the blocks or break anything, and it's still just as broken as you would expect it to be. By the way, in case you haven't seen it, I actually have a video on how to get to the far lands in survival. It's a little bit outdated, but it was a fun adventure. And another thing I want to point out is that the camera is just, oh so broken. Oh, that's just like that's very unhealthy for your neck. Oh, that's just a lot of broken neck right there. It's very, very broken neck. Oh, that's even worse. Yeah, that's just bad. So I'm not sure if you can actually see it on the recording because I'm recording in 60 FPS, but I should be playing in 60 as well. Basically, there's 2 images on screen right now because the game is flicking back and forth so quickly that it's basically 2 images at the same time. I'm sure at this point in the video, you're probably wondering, how in the world do you actually do this? Well, it's actually a fairly simple bug, and yes, this is technically possible in survival. Now, I found this while trying to replicate another bug bug that you guys sent me via Twitter. And that bug is whenever you go through another portal in the end dimension, you will spawn at Y30,000 in the overworld. I have yet to been able to reproduce that bug. However, I think that this bug is a little bit more interesting. So literally all you need to do is go through another portal that is in the end dimension, and then this bug will instantly happen. As you can see, the game technically thinks that we are down there. If we throw some items, we are now officially over there. We can't go through portals, we can't do anything, and we can't interact with any other blocks outside the range of where the game thinks we should be able to. It's a very, very strange bug, and it is actually survival friendly as well. If you want to try this in your creative worlds, all you need to do is use a set block command for the Nether portal itself. It's just set block coordinates and then portal. So that's really all there is to it. It's a very, very simple bug to reproduce. If you want to try this in your survival worlds, there's usually a few different ways to get Nether portal tiles in your survival worlds. There are pretty niche ways to get them, and they're not really as useful as they used to be, so you might have a hard time finding a video on one. And again, I wouldn't really recommend doing this in survival mode because you do kind of break the game desyncing yourself from where the game thinks that you are actually in your world. I'm not sure if there's any lasting effects. I don't know how this works on multiplayer worlds, and overall, it's just a super weird bug. A really convenient use for this bug is actually testing various different mob farms. These things are notoriously annoying to test because you can't get too close to them, otherwise nothing spawns, and you can't get too far away from them, otherwise nothing spawns, so it's hard to see how the actual mobs function and behave inside of a mob farm. I just did this bug, so the game technically thinks that I am standing right there on that block. So if we go over here, you can see that we won't be able to break any of these blocks. We're gonna go ahead and kill all the mobs in the game, and you'll see that we will have some spawns right in here and right around us. So now you can actually stand inside of your mob farm while it's functioning and while mobs are spawning without impeding any rates of the farm. As you can see, we just had some over there, and those guys were certainly way too close to the player to normally spawn. However, the game thinks that we're all the way over there at the AFK spot, so we're going to be getting the optimal rates from this farm while also being able to see exactly how it's working on the inside and seeing that everything is behaving as it normally should. The only real practical thing I can think of for this bug is testing various different mob farms and just making sure they are working without actually impeding the rates. I am technically up there at the AFK spot. We can drop that item. As you can see, it is now right there. So I am now free to explore the entire farm and make sure that everything is working as per usual, like it should. If you have any additional ideas on how you think we could use this bug and additional utilization or just different fun things that you discover while using this bug, let us know in the comment section down below. It's a super fascinating one, and it should have so many endless possibilities. So let me know your different thoughts and let me know your different ideas about this. Again, I wouldn't recommend doing this in survival mode, and if you are going to do this on your worlds, make sure to create a copy and only use this bug on that copy. That way you don't ruin your world and, you know, be safe about it. Whenever it comes to these kinds of Bedrock Edition bugs, it's always better to err on the side of caution. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Bugrock of the Week. Of course, if you have, make sure to leave a like on the video or possibly share it around with your friends. Doing those two things significantly helps out the videos and the channel a ton, so thank you so very much for doing that. Otherwise, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing so you don't miss future ones on the channel. I'll see you guys down in the comment section and in the next one. And then there was silence.